Hey everybody, Ron here from Cold Harbor Supply, and today we're going to go over the installation of our JerryC Pro Enhanced Focusing COTI Defender. Our Defender is primarily made of TPU. It's nice and soft and squishy, as you can see here, but it's still rigid enough to keep its shape, and the reason for that is so that if you take any impacts, the sims or BBs to the sides of the Defender or the front-facing parts of the COTI, you won't actually shatter your protector. So we've designed this Defender to not only protect your JerryC Pro COTI, but also to make the focusing of the device easier and possible. So from what we've seen as of the making of this video, existing protectors on the market don't actually allow you to focus your COTI, which I believe is an essential feature of the JerryC Pro. Before we get into it, let's go over the tools you're going to need. So as you can see here, I have a micro screwdriver set with 3 bits. I have a T5, a 1.5 millimeter hex key, which all of the screws that come with your JerryC Pro Defender will use, and I also have a mini flathead just to make the installation of these O-rings a little easier. But before we get into installing the JerryC Pro Defender, let's prep the JerryC Pro for install. So first things first, you want to make sure that your battery is out of your device so you don't have any accidental activations. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to remove the stock rubber kind of bikini cap. You just pull it through this hole over here and it'll come off pretty easily. This is not going to be used for this Defender, but you can set this off to the side if you want to reinstall that for any reason in the future. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to actually take your screwdriver, put on your T5, and you're going to remove the 2 screws over here on the projector arm that are facing the objective of the COTI. Do not remove these back ones, just these 2 front ones. They should come off pretty easily without any Loctite. Alright, once that's done, just make sure the front lens is clean. We're going to be covering that, and you can set this guy aside for now, and then we're going to prep the Defender for installation. There's going to be 3 versions of this Defender, just like all of our other Defender lines for our thermal imagers. There's going to be one with the titanium, one with just the germanium, and then one with both. So depending on the version that you order, you're going to come with a slightly different arrangement of O-rings and, of course, sacrificial lens materials. So first off, we're going to start off with the titanium one. For the titanium Defender, what you're going to need is the mesh, and you're also going to need this larger O-ring. This is a stepped O-ring made of TPU, and as you can see, it has a smaller flange and a larger flange at the bottom. For the titanium one, the larger flange is going to face the bottom of the protector with the titanium sitting in the base. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the rear end of the protector here, and then you're going to drop the titanium in like so, and it's going to sit on the front flange of the lens. It doesn't really matter what orientation you put it in. Then you're going to take your stepped O-ring, make sure that the wider side is facing the bottom, and you're going to kind of squeeze it in here. And inside the Defender housing itself, there's going to be some notches that will fit your stepped O-ring. If you need, you can swap your screwdriver to the flathead to kind of press this in, but I kind of did that with really no issues. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your finger or your screwdriver, and you're going to kind of want to press all the way around just to make sure it's seated in the lower O-ring segment. So if I zoom in here, you can see that over here, there's a ring for one of the O-rings, and down below it where I just put that stepped O-ring, there's another ring. You want it to sit on the lower one for this installation. And there you have it. The titanium Defender is installed, and you can skip forward and move over to the part where we install this entire Defender onto the COTI itself. Now we're going to move on to the germanium only version of the Defender and go from there. So for the germanium version of the Defender, the installation is very similar to the titanium, except for one step. So first off, when you guys get your germanium, it'll likely come in a tissue paper like wrapping. I recommend you guys use that wrapping to install it to avoid getting any fingerprints or scratches on the germanium. It is a little bit more delicate. Right now, I'm just using a piece of beat up germanium just for demonstration purposes, but you guys will get a new piece when you buy it with the germanium from us at CHS. So the first step is you're going to want to take your germanium and you're going to want to drop it all the way in the same exact way you guys did to the titanium version of the Defender. Then you're going to want to take your stepped O-ring. So again, this O-ring has 2 flanges, one wider one and one narrower one. And you're going to basically flip this on its head to have the narrower one press against the germanium, and then the wider one sit in this upper O-ring channel right over here, as you can see. So I'm going to do that right now. You're going to just take this guy, It's bendy, so you can slip it in like so. Get it to index one of the upper rings, and then you're going to press it in like so, so that it sits nicely within that defender. And of course, if you're scared of scratching the germanium up, I recommend wearing gloves or using that piece of tissue paper that will come with your germanium stock out of box. And then once that's good to go, all you're going to do is take your finger and gently, without touching the germanium, just kind of massage that O-ring in so it's nice and indexed into that notch and it looks nice and circular and even. And I would say that's pretty good. And then you're ready to move on to the next step. For those of you guys who just bought the germanium only version, you guys can now skip to the installation step of this video. For those of you guys who bought the one with the titanium and the germanium, we're going to get into the installation of that right after this. For the full version of this defender that uses both the titanium and the germanium, you're not going to be using the larger stepped O-rings. You can set that to the side. You're going to be using these two smaller, thinner TPU O-rings. So first, you take your titanium mesh and you stick it into the defender. Make sure it's seated at the bottom. And then you're going to take this O-ring and you're going to install it into the lower grooves of this defender. Again, be patient with this, guys. This might take some time. And again, you can use that flathead, like I showed you earlier, to help you seat the O-rings more positively in. Once you have the O-ring in there, what you're going to do is just take your finger and just massage that O-ring into that groove to make sure that it sits concentrically and that it's positively locked in. The next step is you're going to take your germanium. Of course, if you do not want to scratch your germanium, make sure you wear gloves or you have the tissue paper that comes with it to handle it. Then what you're going to do is you're going to drop it in there and it's going to sit on top of that O-ring. And the last step is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to be taking the last O-ring and then you're going to seat it into that final groove on top of the germanium. Like I said, you will get a new piece of germanium when you get this. I'm just using a beat up one for the purpose of this video. And just make sure you massage that O-ring again into that groove just to make sure it's nice and concentric. And there you have it. Both protectors installed for a more comprehensive thermal defending solution. Alright, so no matter what sacrificial lens material or combination thereof that you installed, the next steps are going to be the same for any version of this defender. This will come with an enhanced focusing ring. This ring is made of a hard nylon, and it's going to sit in here and then friction lock into the grooves of this focusing lens on top. Because this protector is made of TPU, you're going to be able to slide this in, and the direction to slide it in is if you see this little flange on top, you're going to have it oriented like so, and it's going to slide in like that. What you're going to do is you're going to slide it in between this kind of thin part over here and the main body that houses the sacrificial lenses, and you're going to kind of press it in there like so. You might need to kind of open it up like that to fit it in, but it will eventually give and it will go in no problem. And then that flange will sit inside and we'll be able to turn like so. So then what you're going to do for the next step is you're going to make sure that the grooves that are going to lock up to the focusing lens line up with the focusing lens itself. So what I like to do is kind of just make it like a plus symbol like that, and then do the exact same for this one, but in a positive space kind of way. So that way, it just makes the installation a lot easier. And what you're going to do is you're kind of going to go like this. You're going to mate it up, and it might take a little bit of massaging, and you're going to need to press it pretty firmly to fit it in. I recommend grabbing it like so, and then pressing it in like that. You're going to kind of feel it notch into place, and then you're going to make sure it's all nice and indexed. After that, grab the bottom over here. This little tab will go into where the kind of bikini cover went. So before you screw everything in, you want to kind of test to make sure that it works. If it's working properly, you should feel that the focusing ring is actually focusing your COTI, which in this case it is, which is awesome. So for the final step of screwing everything in, you're going to grab your screwdriver, change it out to that 1.5 millimeter bit. And I like to do the top first and then the bottom. The top two screws are going to be the smaller screws over here. They're tinier and they're very thin. You're going to put it on the 1.5 like so, and then you're going to line it up with this little hole on top, and then you're going to screw it in here. You might need to push a little bit past to get past that TPU material, And then what you're going to do is I like to kind of screw it in the opposite way, wait for to hear the screw kind of notch. And then once it does, screw it in like so. And you don't want to screw it too tight, but just finger tight is fine. You repeat the same process with the other side. Once you hear that notch, you can start screwing it in. And you kind of want to just screw it until it's finger tight, or you start to see the screw bite into the material of the Defender, which is more than good enough. Then for the last screw, you're going to take our longer screw here, but thankfully it uses the same 1.5 millimeter head, and you're going to put it into the bottom hole here. You might need to overcome that material yet again, and then you're going to kind of screw it the other way a little bit, and then this basically just screws into a small hole within the TPU itself. Again, finger tight is fine. It doesn't need to be crazy tight, and once you can kind of see it biting into the material, it's good to go. That's the full installation of the CHS Enhanced Focusing Defender for your JerryC Pro. Full comprehensive protection on the front of the device, the bottom, and the projector arm, which sometimes can be a little bit of a delicate part of the housing. As you can see, there's a good bit of flex here, so if you take any hits with SIMs or BBs to the front of this, you're going to be fine. And of course, you maintain that awesome feature of the JerryC Pro, which is the focusing lens, and you get the full range of focus with our Defender. Thanks for watching, everybody, and stay tuned for more in the future.